Kia ora friends, welcome back to my studio. I'm Gina, and in today's video we're going to be continuing on with the lantern build, which I've just got right here. So this is where we've got to in the last video, and in this one what I'm wanting to do is turn this piece of glass that I've removed out of the front into a couple of doors. So let's get started. So before I get on to creating the doors, what I want to do is just patch up the exterior of the lantern. So this is a one of two, and the other lantern, as you can see here, actually has some corner pieces around each side, and I've actually removed those already off this lantern because I knew that I wanted to do something a little bit different with it. So I'm just going to patch up where the nail holes have been, just with a bit of filler, and then I'm going to come back in and give it a coat of paint, and I've tried to match the paint as close to what's already there right now rather than having to repaint the entire piece. So let's get on and start creating the doors. What I've done is I've roughly drawn out the size of the doors that they need to be, and I've got these lengths of wood and plus my easy cutter, and I'm just cutting those to length. So I've got 4 vertical pieces which makes up the 2 doors, and then these cross pieces as well which make up the top and the bottom. So the way that I'm going to create the doors is using 2 layers of wood. So this is the first layer, and this will be on the outside of the door, and I'm just going to use my gluing jig just to set those up and pop those aside and let those dry just while that wood glue sets up. And then once they're dry, I am going to add in the second layer of wood, and I'm going to do this on the opposite way. So on the front of the doors, the longer pieces are on the side, and so on the second layer, the longer pieces are going to be at the top. This wood actually is a little bit narrower, and so what that's going to do is give me a little bit of a lip on the inside, so that's where the glass is going to sit against. So as you can see here, the way that I've got the wood sitting together, it's giving me that little bit of a lip, and that's where the glass is going to sit. So I'm going to do some side pieces just the same as what I've done for the top and the bottom, and then that'll give me my frame. So as I set the in, you can see where the lip is actually going to hold the glass, and then all I need to do now is mark this and score it in place. I've already cut it to length, and I'm just using a glass cutter in order to cut it, and this one went really well, which I'm really pleased about. The second one, however, didn't go as well, and I've left the footage in just to show you probably what not to do. So this, for some reason, didn't score all the way through or whatever, and I ended up by having 2 ends that snapped off really nicely, and then I was left with this funny little bit in the middle. And I used my pliers, or tweezers I should say, because they've got a nice flat surface, and I ended up by using my pliers. And I wouldn't recommend doing this. What I should have done is gone through and rescored it to see if I could actually get the cut through, because what this has ended up by doing is actually cracked the glass. But I only had this piece of glass, so I'm going to run with it, and it absolutely made a mess, as you can see there. So I did actually spend some time just cleaning off my surface to get rid of all those little shards of glass. So like I say, wouldn't recommend doing it. And then all I'm going to do is paint these up the same colour as the actual lantern itself. So to attach the glass, I'm going to use this sort of, it's almost like Fabri-Tac, but it's actually a little bit, it was the same sort of solvent based. I'm just going to put some dabs in the corner, and then I'm going to put some wood glue around the actual outside, and that will be enough to hold into place. The reason why I'm using the wood glue around the outside is because it gives me a really nice fine bead, whereas I just know that the other glue will be enough to hold the glass with just the tacks in the corner, but I wouldn't be able to get a nice fine bead around the outside of the frame. And so this is just enough to hold it into place. So moving on to adding on the hinges, what I've done here already is I've actually super glued these onto the side of the door, and the reason why I've done that is to hold them into place while I work my way around drilling some holes and then adding the tiny little screws and nails. So these are extra tiny, but these actually help secure the whole hinge system together. And then I've got this tiny little, it's actually a jeweler's hammer, it's really awesome. And I'm just going to tap those into place because I couldn't get them to screw in any further than what they were. And then that is it. And I just went my way around all of the 4 hinges, 2 on each door. And then to put the doors into the lantern, I'm just following exactly the same process. So what I've done is I've super glued these into the frame, and then I'm just drilling in the pilot holes, and then I'll go through and add in the little screws to make sure that they're all secure. So all of the doors are super glued as well as screwed, nailed into place, so they will not be going anywhere. So one of the things with putting the super glue in on the door, it meant that I was having to line up those hinges with the side of the lantern, but it meant the door didn't quite fit. So all I'm doing is just filing that down, or actually whittling that down with my X-Acto blade, and then I'll also do that on the other door. What I should have done is rebaited the hinges into the doors, and I didn't do that. I thought that I would have enough room, or I thought that I'd made enough allowance around the doors in order for the hinges just to be sitting there. I wasn't too worried about it fitting perfectly. This is sort of like a lantern, it's a garden shed. I wasn't too worried about it, but what that meant is I've had to actually spend a lot more time resizing the doors, which would have been a lot simpler just to rebate the hinges. Anyway, lesson learned, and that still comes out pretty well. So using a bit of re-stickable spray adhesive, I'm going to spray the back of these decorative pieces, and these are going to make up the real detail around the lantern. And so I've got this arched piece at the top and then some decorative panels down the side. So I'm just going to stick those onto the glass, and then I am going to come back and attach them a little bit more securely. But I was really happy with these. I'll see if I can create a file. I've still got these for my Cricut machine, and I'll see if I can create a file, and if I can, I'll put in a link to them in the description below. So this is some square wooden dowels. They're about 4mm square, and then I'm just going to work my way around doing the 2 sides, the top and the bottom, and then I'm also going to do the cross pieces at the bottom of the arch, and then some vertical pieces alongside each of the panels on each side. So for the door, what I'm using here is the leftover pieces of the side panels, because I had created some additional pieces for when this was one solid piece of glass. And all I'm going to do here is just cut them down to size, and I'm really wanting to cut them away as if the outside of the decorative piece sits in underneath the panels of the glass, just like they do on the side pieces. So I'm just going to cut these away, and as you can see on the other door I've also done that. And instead of using the spray adhesive, I'm just going to use a bit of wood glue to put that into place. And yes, this is upside down, and I soon realize that it is upside down. There we go. It's all around the right way. So I'm just going to put this at the top and the bottom, and then also adding in some more of that decorative wood trim, just to, it's a little bit thick for the door, but actually it works out perfectly fine. And that is the doors basically all complete. So one last thing that I wanted to do was create some little handles, and I just raided my little bit box of beads and found these little pieces. They're a little bit long, but I thought it will just add a lovely little decorative element. And I've got a bit of wire that I'm just going to bend round to hook into the end of that little decorative bead. And then I'm just going to cut them to the same length, and I've got another little bead that I'm going to use as the plate against the door, and I'm just going to super glue those into place. But first I am going to drill a hole in the door just to allow for that wire to sit into. I haven't gone all the way through the door because I was worried that I was going to hit the glass, so I'm actually just using some super glue in order to make sure that they don't go anywhere. If you found this video helpful, consider hitting that like button and feel free to subscribe to the channel. Have a fabulous week everybody, and until next week, I'll see you then. Bye for now.